GM.
Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to show you is really a combination of two things today. I played a couple of days ago, like I say, in the 4NCL, and the time limit was 45 minutes plus 15 seconds a move. So it's quite a long time limit. My best time limits nowadays, I think, are probably like rapid chess. I think that's probably what I'm strongest at, like half an hour each, 40 minutes each is probably my strongest. I think at Blitz, I'm okay over a board. I'm not that strong online. When I say not that strong, I'm not like super Blitz player. I'm just not quick enough. But rapid, I think, is good for me because I feel like I can play quite naturally. I know most ideas, and it gives me time to calculate. And my calculation at Blitz is a little bit slow compared to other grandmasters. So what we're going to do is just have a look at my game against Henry Lee. Now, let me tell you a bit about Henry Lee. Henry Lee is an Irish chess player. He's a young Irish chess player. I don't know how old he is, 15, 16. He's already a FIDE master. He's 2310 rated. So he's a very talented player, potentially a grandmaster. Ireland only has one grandmaster, I believe, or two. It has Baborin and maybe Brian Kelly, but it doesn't. I don't know about Brian Kelly if he's a grandmaster. I don't think he is a grandmaster, but I don't think they've had any homegrown grandmasters. So I want to talk about this game, what I was thinking. So it's kind of like a long play game. And then after I've talked about this game, I also want to discuss a little bit about the French defence. So I'll give you my thoughts on one line, one of the main lines in the French defence. So if you're trying to learn the French defence from white or black, you get a free lesson later on as well. Now, Aldo's saying, I played it like a Blitz game. Yeah, I mean, I played the opening like the Blitz game because a lot of it was preparation, but I did slow down, when it got a bit critical. So I played quickly at the start because I kind of knew what I was doing. So let's have a look, anyway, at the game. So I was black, and it did start off with a French. Now, Henry Lee is very well prepared. Now, generally, if I'm playing a junior or a younger player like Henry Lee, and I know they're very well prepared, so they know all the main lines, I will try to find a sideline which they may not have faced to throw them off guard, to get them out of their books, and to try to get them into something new. Thank you for subscribing, Razor Boy. So I spent about 5 minutes thinking of a right line to play. I very quickly looked at his game, only spent 5 minutes. I saw against the Sicilian, he plays quite main line stuff. I also saw he plays some bishop b5 checks, so I didn't really want to learn that. I was tempted to play the black line, but I thought I've been playing that a lot recently. Let's try something else. The perk he does, that's when you go g6, he does the main line, f4, which I don't necessarily like playing against, the Austrian attack. Against, what else is there that I play? Well, I play black line, Sicilian, the perk. Well, and then I saw in the French that he plays the main line classical variation, and I saw that he's had a couple of games that have gone about with knight c3 in this position. And here there are two ways to play it. Bishop b4 is still playable, and this is what I recommend in my DVD, The Killer French. Still a good move. I mean, Nepo's been playing that recently in the candidates. But the modern way of playing is knight to f6 now. And knight to f6 is, I think, a very interesting way to play. And I'm really enjoying these positions. And if I do ever get around to filming another DVD, an updated one on the French defence, probably for Ginger GM, then I will include this one in it because you get some very interesting positions. Hello to PJ Reed and happy birthday. You're 34 today. You're a youngster compared to us 40-year-olds. So hello. Everyone else who's come along as well, hello. So Jen's Chess, hello, and everyone if I've missed you out who is twitching, etc. Now there are two moves against this. This is the classical variation. The two moves are e5, which is slightly more popular than what my opponent played, or bishop g5. Now, bishop g5 is a move where black has a couple of options. The main ones being bishop e7 or taking on e4. But my opponent did not do that. If we have time later on today, we'll take a look at a little suggestion I can give you in that. Basically today, after I've shown this game and given my Grandmaster thoughts on this game, hopefully you'll learn from what I'm thinking. You're basically getting a free lesson off a Grandmaster today. It will cost at least £50 in real life to get that, so you're getting a free lecture. So, got to be good if you want to improve your chess. And this is what we're going to be looking at later on. This mainline French position. I can't show you all the French in the time of the stream, but what my opponent played e5 is very critical as well. Now, I used to put my knight into e4 occasionally, which is quite an interesting line, but I think white can get a safe advantage. But knight d7, the main line, leads to really interesting positions. I might show that sack line a bit later, SAR, GERT, or, when I've shown the game. And this is the main line. And the reason I'm playing this is because you often get very exciting positions, like a Sicilian defense, where white castles queenside and we castle kingside. So it's actually a very dynamic attacking opening this. And I've been having some very good results with it recently. So it's something I really like the look of. And now f4 is the main move. There are other moves, but this is the main move. You've got to play c5 in the French defense. You can't play a French defense. Well, you can, but they're not very good. Without playing c5, you need to try and attack on d4. Darth Mambo is saying, I was surprised I never played that. Well, I did play that line. I played that line for the first 12 years of my life, b6 in the Winnerware. So you'll be surprised to know, maybe not. I did play that. My dad taught me that, so it's the first line I played in French. Basically, my openings were quite based around Botvinnik's openings, ex-world champion Botvinnik. I guess my dad used to like Botvinnik. Botvinnik played the English. I used to play the English. Botvinnik played the French defence famously in a couple of world championships. I played the French defence, and he occasionally played the Dutch. He played the Stonewall lot and even the classical. So maybe you could say Botvinnik was one of my opening things. But then, as time went on, I adjusted. Later on. Chris Baker, thank you for that information. I might even tune into that at 9 o'clock. I do like a bit of Red Dwarf. Who doesn't? So now knight to f3 played, and again this is all mainline stuff. And now we develop our piece and we attack this square d4. And often in the French defense, you will find that it's a battle around this square. Now, white has more space in the French defense. White has this big center, but this big center can also be overextended and weak. It's like if you build a big house, but you build it very quickly and you build it with wood, it can be pushed over if it's not built right. And this is kind of the key point. Black attacks this key point, and if black can break through on that key point, he can often get a nice position. And that's one thing that my opening idea in this game tried to do. Now my opponent played very quickly, bishop e3, the best move again, and the main line controlling this square with 3 pieces, developing and preparing to play queen d2 and castles queenside. Now we'll talk more about this position later on. There are many ways you can play this position as black, and there are many main lines here. The move I picked is an extremely rare line. Killian, who mentioned it to me in a bar in Bunratty 2 years ago about 3 o'clock in the morning, I remembered what he told me somehow. Wanted to call it the Norwegian variation because a lot of Norwegian players, well, not a lot, but Simen Agnidstein played it, and one other Norwegian player. I think Simen Agnidstein, and there's another guy, Kirikov, a Russian grandmaster. The only 2 Russian grandmasters who played it. But the next move I actually play, which we'll come to in a second, is a very rare move, but it's a very interesting move. And the reason I played it was to take my opponent out of his theory. Now, just to tell you some of the options, the moves that I've been playing quite a lot recently is bishop e7, and then after queen d2, I've either playing a6 or I've been playing castles kingside. Now, they both have pros and cons. Castles kingside is maybe the move I really, I'm playing most recently, because this has the advantage that white should now castle queenside. It's all very subtle, and I think we'll talk about this later on. Or do we mention it now? Do we give the French lesson now or later? I think we'll do the French lesson later on. So I'll tell you all these lines later on. But very briefly, the advantage of castling kingside now is if white tries to castle kingside with bishop e2, we haven't wasted a move with a6. a6 is not a particularly useful move if white castles kingside. And the advantage of this, and this is all very subtle, is that we can play b6 defending c5. Because what are we trying to do here as black? Well, we want to explode. We want to explode white's centre. Otherwise, white will just castle, move his knight, go c3 and get a space advantage. So we want to play a move like f6 here. But the problem with playing a move like f6 in this position is that black has to face pawn takes f6. And now if we capture this one with a knight or the bishop, let's say knight takes, white can actually grab this pawn on c5. And even though I thought black has a bit of compensation, I don't believe it. And I think white can get his pieces to these two dark squares. I actually remember having a game against Chris Baker, who's in the chat, with the black pieces many a moon ago in this same kind of variation, positional idea. And this is not working. Now, f6, believe it or not, don't listen to Feingold, is one of the main ideas in the French defence. You have to play this if you play the French. So the idea against bishop e2 is that you now play b6, and if they castle, you can now play f6 or even f5. And after f6, you get very good play against the centre. And if white takes here now, it's not a problem whatsoever. You can even take with a bishop, because they don't win a pawn here. And if they do take there, well, you're going to not take with the pawn. This is actually a blunder. Why is this a blunder? What is a good move for white now? Taking with a pawn is actually a blunder. What's a good move for white? Let's see if you're awake in the chat. Who's awake in the chat? What tactic does white have here? We would like to take positionally with the pawn, but taking with a pawn fails to a tactic. So I'm sure some stronger players among you can see the tactic. Yep, well done. Knight takes d5, queen takes d5. We win the knight there. But if you, for example, capture with the knight on c5, in this position, you're getting very active play. You're threatening like d4. You're harmoniously developed. So these are all very subtle little ideas. And, I've learnt this again the hard way by playing all this myself. And I'm just telling you why I castle, because I used to play a6 here, because this is a very good move if white wants to castle queenside. But I got really pissed off with this move a6 if white now plays bishop e2. And you can compare this to the last line, because now white is not going for the fun lines where he castles queenside. But after something like, let's say we castle now, he can castle kingside. And we don't have time to play this f6 move, because if we now play it, he does the same thing. And we've kind of wasted a move with a6. And a6 looks totally irrelevant here. So that's why I wanted to basically discourage my opponents from castling kingside. And this was more of I was trying to pick a style of position that suits my style, aggressive, opposite side castling, attacking position. So that's why in this position, I used to love the move a6, because a lot of players here, by the way, a lot of players here would try to castle queenside. Let's just ask you a quick question. If white does castle queenside straight away, this is a really bad blunder. And I think black is already winning here. Anyone know why black might be winning here? Why is black winning here? Why is black winning in this position? I mean, okay, it's not winning straight away, but well, Jen's Chess knows this straight away. H. Branny knows this. Well done. The winning move now, and this is played by Morozevich against Shirov, is just c4. Now that white has committed the king to the queen side, this move c4 is about to play b5, b4, and this pawn storm is just too quick. I mean, you can't castle. So what white has to do, if white wants to castle queenside, is first take on c5. And now, thank you for subscribing, hey Google. After knight takes c5, now white can castle queenside. And we'll talk a little bit more about this position later on, but I think white is... I think black is doing brilliantly here with a new idea. I played against Grandmaster and former Women's World Champion Ketty Arakamuria, and that is b5, and Ketty played Queen f2, and now I played the novelty Knight to a4. And I had this against Ketty, and even though the computer frowns upon this idea, the more you leave this on the computer, the more the computer likes black's chances. And the idea of this is that, okay, you get a bad pawn structure, but who gives a damn if you're going to checkmate on the B file and the C file, and you get this dynamic position. But, as I mentioned before, the problem with A6, and it'd be lovely if white insists on castling queenside, but if white plays bishop E2, I don't like this move. So these are all the little subtleties of this position. Other moves that have been played after Queen D2, I've also taken immediately here and put a piece on C5. That's another line. Queen B6 is not my style. This is a way to try and grab a pawn. Very theoretical, but I don't really like grabbing pawns in the opening and going defensive. A6 are then playing B5 is another way of playing. There's many ways to play here. I should point out that C4 is not a move I like playing in this position, because white has not committed the king, and if bishop e2, white's king can go this way, and then you've closed down the structure. Remember what I said earlier in the French defense, you want to try to take on d4, you want to try to get rid of white's center. I think that generally, as a rule, and we saw that Nepo lost an important game in the candidates against MVL, I think generally that if you play c4 in these positions, you are just worse, because you can't do anything about this center now. You need to try to have some pressure against the center, and I don't like playing against the center. You're more cramped. Percy, you're always complaining that I taught you the Winnerware and then I changed to the classical. Every time I do anything on the classical, you're like, oh, I brought the Winnerware, now he's doing the classical. Wah, 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 wah. Well, look, I mean, these things happen in chess. Chess progresses. And I think we've all got to evolve as chess players. And even though I still will play the Winnerware in future, at the moment I'm having a lot of fun learning the classical. And it is sort of, in my opinion, a very fun way to play. But it's good that you learn both lines, surely, Percy, because then you've got the option. The more knowledge you require, surely the better it is for you. So, I don't think it's anything, Percy, just chill, boy. Just chill, okay? Anyway, so this is just little things about this opening that we might, if we have time, talk about in more detail later on. But first of all, let me show you my new idea here. It's not really a new idea, but it's one of those ideas, and these are the ideas that I love. That was an old idea. It hasn't been played by any strong players for 5-10 years. People have forgotten about it. I love old forgotten chess ideas. And these are things which I always myself try to bring back to life, because they have great surprise value, and they were normally invented before computers. And the reason that people don't play them nowadays, these old ideas, is if you stick them on a computer, the computer will probably say it's not very good, but top players were playing these before computers, and to the human eye, they look very interesting. Nowadays, there's so many amateur players who are bloody, computer grandmasters. They're like, oh, that next move is rubbish because the computer says it's minus this, minus that. Oh, just go and sod off, will you computer junkies. You're not going to be better at chess if you're a computer junkie. So just don't do it, man. Don't do it. Try to learn things for yourself. Okay, I've gone a bit blurry there, as I always do with this effing camera. Bloody blurry. Why do I go blurry? It pisses me off. But anyway, maybe it's just you. You're drunk. That's what it is. You're all drunk. Anyway, I'm sure you can cope with it, yeah? So the idea I now played, which I think is something I'm going to share, well, I'm going to share it with you, but something you might want to wheel out yourself, is the move h6. Now, you might be thinking, what on frigging hell is such a move? What frigging hell is this move, h6? Why are you playing such an irrelevant move? Well, the idea is actually quite thematic. The idea is to break down white center. Now, how are we going to do that? We've got one pawn on c5, attacking that one. Our secondary break in the French defense is f6 to attack that one. But in some cases, you have a third break, and that is g5 to attack that one. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to just break down this pawn structure with our pawn breaks. And h6 really unbelievably threatens the crazy looking move g5. I think someone mentioned to me that I'm getting too obsessed with the black lion. I want to play g5 and everything. I love the move g5 as black. I play it in the Sicilian. I play it in, nearly every opening. Somehow I get g5 in. It's really weird. I don't know how I get it in so much. And this move is actually quite dangerous. Now, my opponent played... And now he started thinking, so I've already surprised him in the opening. It's a great surprise weapon, this. This was a longer time limit, obviously, game. And my opponent played the normal response, queen to d2. Now, again, just to tell you about my opinion on computers, there's a move here that the computer says... Actually, when I put it on the computer earlier, I tried this game out of computer. Thank you for the raid, Chesspatzer UK. I hope you're doing all right. Cheers, mate. The next move that I think is a good move for white, but a computer says it's a bad move and black is actually a little bit better, is a very logical move. Now, can anyone guess the way I'm thinking? What would be a good move here? Queen d2 is obviously an okay move, but what is another decent move? Thank you for the raid. Jen's chess, really well done. Well done. Le Mortician, hello, and everyone else has joined from the raid. The point in chess you try to do two things. Chess is actually quite simple, but it's not. The first thing you try to do is do your own plans. The second thing you do is to stop your opponent's plans. So number one, do your own plans, and number two, stop your opponent's plans. So if you're ever playing a game of chess in a competition and you forget this, what you should do, when it's maybe your opponent's move, you should always, to remember this, go 1 and then go 2. So do that. Put out your hand to your opponent and go 1, 2. Do that. And then you'll remember this. Number 1, stop your opponent's plans. Number 2, number 1, do your own plans. Number 2, stop your opponent's plans. So if we're doing that from a white point of view, g5 is maybe coming. So I think h4 is a very good move. You're doing plan number 2. And plan number 2 is just stopping h5. And I think this is just a good move. But no one's really ever played it. Because it's useful to advance on this area of the board. But if your opponent plays that, you're still going to get an interesting position here. And the downside of playing this is that now g4 is weak. So in actual fact, you might be able to play some move with the f-pawn in some of these lines and try to get your knight to g4. It's still a very interesting position. Okay, but queen d2 is the main move. This is what my opponent played, and this is what everyone plays because it's the main move in the position. White defends the center. White gives himself the option of castling. And now, of course, I play g5. And this is where it starts to get interesting. Now, the idea of g5 is to break up the center. And here, my opponent immediately played a bad move. Now, he took on g5, which is, in my opinion, already probably a bit better for black. But it's what actually the majority of players do. Now, what white should do, because okay, well, let's think logically. I'm going to ask you some questions. If white castles queenside here, trying to hold his center, what is a good plan for black here? And this is relevant to those of you who were listening to earlier on. Remember, I did discuss the French. Who was actually listening earlier on to what I was saying? We're going to find out now. So if white castles now, what would be a good plan? Hello, Frozen Edge. Hope you're doing all right, mate. I hope lockdown in Ireland is okay. I hope it's all right. So I would say the next plan is a two-part plan, basically. Two-part plan. Now, most of you are saying c4. You have the right idea, and maybe this is playable, but in this position, now white can take on g5, and white is a lot quicker attacking you in this position. So rather than playing c4 straight away, where white can get counterplay over here, what would be a better way of doing this? Because yes, you have the right idea. You want to play c4 now that white's committed the king. But what should you do first? Well done, checkmate a lot. You have it totally right. g4 first, gaining a tempo, pushing that knight away. Let's say the knight goes to e1. I would now play c4. Now, I know a strong player in the chat, I am homeless on Wi-Fi, is recommending taking here. This might be absolutely fine, at least equal for black. But if I was black here, I know that my opponent's committed his king, and I know that c4 is just a very easy plan. I will play b5, whatever, next move, whatever my opponent plays. And even if he takes it, which I had in one game, rook b8 will give me a massive attack. And this just looks crushing for black. This already looks really, really good. So my opponent shouldn't castle. But his best line, and just those of you who are wondering what white should do in this variation, the line which the computer says is a big advantage to white, I'm not so convinced, is pawn takes c5. Now, probably white is better in this line, but it's a very complex position because at least now we've got rid of white's center. So we should take on f4 because we get rid of another pawn. And after bishop takes f4, I think we should play knight takes c5 because our bishop has a square here. And now something like castle's queenside a6. Now the computer really likes this position for white, but I don't always listen to the computer. And I think this is just a very dynamic position. Now I would say, compared to some variations, it is probably a bit worse for black because our king is a little bit weaker. We can't castle kingside. Our kingside is now too weak. And white will try to attack us on the f-file, but we do also have a plan of going b5, b4, knight to e4, because we want to gain this square by kicking this knight away. We can also go b5, b4, throw our queen over to start an attack. Our knight might be able to come over here and potentially sack itself. We can also move our bishop, get our rook there. So it's a very double-edged and interesting position. Now, the computer really likes white. I'm not so convinced that white's a lot better. But, you know, it is a very interesting position. And that's, you know, this is white's best line in my opinion. In my opinion. Simon, is there somewhere I can find all these online games? I think if you go to the 4NCL website, they're all there. So just type 4NCL into Google and you'll probably find all the games. So anyway, that's what white should do. But this position, if you haven't seen it before, it is very dangerous because this B pawn is coming. I'm also attacking you, you know, at the same time. My opponent instead, after G5, took on G5. And now, again, the whole point of this idea is to get rid of his center. So I do this now by taking on d4. My opponent shouldn't give up his dart squares because they're coming open, so he takes with a knight. And now I've got rid of all three of his pawns. On the downside, my king might be a little bit weak, but I have a beautiful central structure there. So what should white play? Well, my opponent castled kingside, which I think is very natural. The other option here, I guess, is to take on h6 when there are two options here. Well, there's three options, actually. I was probably going to go bishop takes h6 here, which works tactically, because what I actually want to get now is the queens off. Why do I want to swap queens? Because my king is more exposed. Slightly. It hasn't really got anywhere safe to go. These pawns can guard it, but there's many sacrifices if the queens are on the board. But if I swap queens, I clearly have a better pawn structure because central pawns, it's much better to have three central pawns. And they are kind of going to be passed as well. So I want to swap queens. And the idea of this move is that if he takes, I have this check, and then I can get the queens off if queen takes there. So this is one way of playing. I won't answer all questions in the chat. Hopefully, oh, Henry Lee. Thank you, Blair, for answering that. Henry Lee, FIDE Master 2310. Played, what, a couple of days ago, Blair, was it? For Battersea Horses against this Irish team. Another way you can play here, by the way, after taking here, which I think is very interesting, is Queen H4 check. And if G3, now Knight takes D4. Because we have a check here. This is a very interesting, complex line. And there's even another way you can play after this one. You can also go knight g4, just threatening to win the dark squares. And all these moves look quite good for black to me. So my opponent now castled. And now black has quite an important tactical sequence. I take on g5. Now, I think my opponent has to win that pawn. Otherwise, I'm a pawn up. And I should be pretty safe with bishop e7. And after this move, what should black now play? What should black now play? So let's see. I'm going to ask you questions as we go through this game in the chat. So you're getting a little lesson with a couple of questions as well. By the way, we're even going to look at the ending in this game. It's a very interesting ending. Okay, so anyone? Yes, Jen's Chess, H. Branny. Hello, H. Branny. You are correct. The best move here is to get the queens off because my opponent's king is safer. If we keep the queens on the board, he might be able to sacrifice his way through. I know I'm an aggressive player, but swapping queens, if it's the best move, it should be done. And you can do that by going queen takes bishop, queen takes queen, bishop here. And now we get this position here. And actually, Aldo mentioned that I was playing all these moves instantaneous. That is because I had this position prepared in the tournament. I can't remember the tournament, the last tournament I played, and I remembered my preparation for that tournament a couple of months ago, and I was able to recall it against Henry Lee. And I think black is just better here. Why? Because of the central pawns. Very nice. They control a lot of squares. If I can get my bishop, king and rook over, I can even start attacking these pawns. So critical stage one of the game is maybe out of the way. So I'm going to move through the next couple of moves a little bit quicker, giving a bit briefer explanations. So white develops. I develop my last piece. White plays h3. The idea might be to go g4 at some moment, but when white plays g4, h3 becomes weak. So I just play now king e7. I can put my king in the center now because the queen's been exchanged. I want to get my last piece into the game, which is my rook on a8. I do have to watch out for some sacrifices with the knights, but these moves don't work, like check, take here, check. It's just not very good because I just move my king to some square. Maybe not there, but I'm a piece up. It doesn't work. These sacrifices will only work if white's got a queen on the board, so the queen could come in and start harassing my king. Hence why I've swapped off the queen. So he played now rook on h to e1. This is a good move. He's lining his rook up, but there's no threats as yet because my knight here is nicely positioned. So I get my last piece in the game and I create a threat on g2. My opponent defends that one, and now he may be threatening something like knight takes knight and knight takes pawn, because this knight is a little bit weak. So I just play f6 to consolidate my knight. I'm not in a rush here. And now my opponent plays knight b3, which is a pretty good move. He's clearing off the lines, and he wants to avoid this one. And next move, I think, again, remember we come back to idea number one and idea number two. Idea number one is try to improve your position, but idea number two is try to stop your opponent improving his position. Now here, I came to the conclusion that maybe g4 helps my opponent's position. He might be able to get his bishop there, a little bit of sacrificial ideas. And I thought if I could stop the move g4, I want to stop it. So how can we maybe try to do idea number two, stop our opponent's ideas? When you're playing chess, always remember this is one of the main mistakes that an amateur player makes. One of the main mistakes an amateur player makes is they get so wrapped up in their own ideas and their own way of thinking that they forget to think about what's my opponent trying to do. How do I stop that? If you want to improve immediately at chess, get into habit of trying to stop your opponent's ideas. And well done to Wear the Hat. Well done to everyone else who suggested. Now, I will ask an idea. What are you going to do after knight e2 with that variation? Because obviously you have to consider that move. Let's have a look. So rook g3. It stops g4. My rook is a little bit active, but I do need to think what I do against knight e2. So if he does play knight to e2, what am I playing here, people? And this actually occurred in the game. He went knight c5 first. This move I didn't think really helped him, because I just go bishop c8, which seems like a negative move, but it's not, because I'm going to kick my opponent's piece away at b6 next move. Whenever an opponent moves a piece into your half of the board, you should always be thinking about giving it a kick away with a pawn. So that's b6 move. I think this just helps me. But now he did play knight to e2. So what was my idea? Was my idea just to come back here again? I don't want to get my rook trapped. So I'm combining positional play and tactics here. So what is my idea? Well, actually, you do have it right. It is rook to e3, but I've got to be a little bit careful because my rook has no squares. Now, the first thing I've got to bear in mind is if he moves his knight now and I take the rook on e1, a pair of rooks are going to be exchanged. Now, I'm going to ask you guys the question, and you have to have a reason for this. Chess is all about why. Why is that a good exchange? Why is it a bad exchange? Why are you moving your piece there? What are you trying to achieve? It's about the whys. What, why? So if my opponent did go knight c3 and I do exchange rooks, who does that help and why? If you can start thinking this way sometimes, then you will become a better chess player. So that's what I want you to think about now. If he moves his knight and we exchange rooks, who does that help and why? Who does it help and why? I need to have a reason. So this is what I was thinking. So you're trying to get into my mind here. Who does it help and why? Does it help to push our pawns in the center maybe? Yeah, I think it does. Well done. You're thinking the right way. Well done. Since you moved the rook there, I guess it would help black. Not really what I'm looking for. Easier to push the central pawns. Yeah, I mean, the way I was thinking is that if he moves his knight and I exchange rooks, it's taken me 1, 2, a lot of moves to exchange rooks. But when he had his 2 rooks on these 2 squares, they were exerting quite a lot of pressure against my center. So as some of you have picked out, moving my central pawns forwards, which I want to do eventually, is a lot harder when I'm faced against 2 rooks. The other thing I was thinking is that it cuts out a lot of sacrificial ideas that he might have with another rook on the board. So positionally, I think an exchange of rooks generally helps black because I become more mobile and I cut down on tactics. When in chess, you want to cut down on tactics. You want to cut down on tactics in chess when you have you're better positionally. When you're better positionally, better pawn structure, your opponent has more weaknesses, you want to avoid tactics because you can win without tactics. When you're worse positionally, you want to confuse the position. So here, I'm making it more simple. I'm cutting down on possible tactics. Therefore, I'm improving my chances. That's the way I figured this. Now, the other thing that I have to be aware of is after rook e3, what happens if knight king to d2? What move can I play here? This is also obviously very important because my rook could be trapped. But I have a simple and good move here. What move do I have here? Yes, one for the road. That sounds like something Gary would say. One for the road. We have a rule down the pub. When I go drinking down the pub with a couple of friends, Blair, Darren, Chris included, but normally with my mate Gary, because often he's got kids. I don't have a lot of time. I might just be down the pub for an hour. And if one of us says one for the road, that means that the other person can't go until you get one more pint in. But after they've had that pint, you're allowed to leave. So it's like, you can't just say, oh, I'm going now. Because it's like, well, hang on a minute, we're having a drink. But if you say one for the road, the little pub rule is, okay, we'll have one more beer, then we'll go home and do some work or something. So one for the road, I like. So knight c4 is just a simple way to guard the rook and gain a tempo. So my opponent, you can understand why he played b3. He's trying to cut out knight to c4. But now I can play b6. And he has to move this knight. He doesn't want to go here because if he does go there, well, he gets a very weak pawn. I might have knight c4, b4. I might have bishop there. All these moves attacking that one. So he has to move his knight to a really bad square. And you can kind of see why now. I wasn't sure about him going knight c5 because he's put his knight on the edge of the board where it is actually Very weak. And now I have another move. So what is a good positional idea here now? Let's see if anyone can find my move. Remember, my opponent is going king here. Luckily now, my rook can always get away somewhere because it has e4. But anyone see if they can play the move I did? And remember, every move you play in chess must have a reason. If you can't think of a reason why you're playing it, you shouldn't bloody be playing the move. So try to think of a reason why you're playing that move. And can anyone find my move? Dark side. I'm going to use that to get my girlfriend to leave. What, one for the road? Just keep saying one for the road. Two for the road. I wonder what happens if we start doing that. Okay, knight to d7. But why? Can you give me a reason behind your moves? Can you give me a reason? Knight to b4. Knight to these moves. What's your reason? What do you think about having a sub battle with Chess Bras today on their 5th anniversary? They're live on Chess 24. To be honest, the Theo Gantos, I would do if I had a little bit more warning. So, but I think after I do my thing today, Theo, I've got more work to do. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm doing the stream, but streaming doesn't really make much money with things going on the way they are. I've got to try to make another course, and I've got to try to do some stuff to get, to promote some of the things I'm doing. So I don't really have the time today, I'm afraid. Nice idea though. In the future, I'd love to, of course. So anyone, no one's got my idea yet. Okay, EXOF, well done. Now, activate Mark Hardy. Okay, so what I played, and again, you should be explaining your moves, not just, when everyone says a move, unless it's a tactical idea. Tactical ideas don't really need reasons because they clearly either win a pawn, checkmate, so it's a tactic. But this is a positional game, and my next move, bishop a6, does require a reason. Thank you, V Costa, for subscribing. Because what am I trying to do here? Well, what I'm trying to do, maybe, is exchange on e2. Why am I trying to exchange on e2? Theo, there should be a link below to donate if you're as kind to do that. Another way you can help me out if you want to get something in return is buy David Howe's course above. That is an excellent bloody course. I know it's a bit pricey, but it's 16 hours of preparation. But anything to support it. Sub, Darren is one of the big supporters here. There's loads of ways you can support if you want to. Thank you everyone who does. But it's just nice to have you here as well. Well, okay, so my figuring, the way I was thinking, the reason I played bishop a6, if we go back one move, is the following. What are my strengths and weaknesses in this position? So I'm thinking about my position, and first of all, number one. My strengths are my pawns are very good. What about my pieces then? Well, my knights are very good, yeah? I think my knights are very good. I've got a lovely knight in the centre. It can't be kicked away. So beautiful knight. This knight is fine. It's guarding it. Has chance to jump in. My rooks are pretty good. This rook is quite active. It can exchange off. This rook is fine. The only piece that is bad is this guy. This guy is not doing anything. This guy is trapped in by the pawn. It's not doing anything. Yes, it's a bishop. So why don't I try to get rid of my worst piece? So if I can exchange my worst piece off for one of my opponent's pieces, surely that helps me. So I'm just thinking logically. And also, this knight may look bad, but later on, it might be able to jump in. It has some future against my pawns. Tactically, it might be all right. So why don't I exchange my bishop for this knight? And this is, again, a very logical thing to do if you're trying to improve your chess game. If you're ever thinking about exchanging a minor piece for a minor piece, just think about the pros and cons. Is it a good idea? Who does it help? And I think bishop a6 helps black, because I'm trying to exchange off this piece for this piece. And that's exactly what I do. King d2. And now, yes, okay, it's a little bit tactical. Bishop takes e2, but we have some exchanges. King takes e3, bishop here, rook here. So what have I done by doing that? I've got rid of my bad bishop. I've exchanged off one rook, so it means my pawns are much more mobile. And now it comes to the second thing you should always do in chess. Number one, improve your position. Number two, remember what the other concern I had in this position was, and how can I stop it here? Can anyone find my move now? Can anyone find my move? Now, ChessFlow has the right idea. Moving this rook around is a very nice idea. But what is my opponent probably going to do in this position, which might improve his position? I don't want him to improve his position in any way. I want my pawns to be flexible and start coming up the board, but I don't need to rush it. So, but what is my opponent trying to do? Yeah, you guys have got the right move, but what is my opponent trying to do? Let's think about my opponent. What is white trying to do in this position, and how can I stop that? Okay, well done, Saryak. I think he wants to play g4. How can I stop that move? We'll discuss why he wants to play g4 in a second. Well, I mean, the reason I think he wants to play g4, let's say I just play a move and he goes g4, is his pawns become a little bit more mobile. He gains some space. If he can ever get these pawns moving again, okay, that's hard. It'll be good for him. He gets another square for his bishop to hold off my pawns. He clamps down on my pawn structure by controlling here. And it also, my rook cannot get active now because there's a pawn in the way. There's a number of reasons I don't want him playing g4. So again, we need to stop our opponent's ideas. And by just playing f5 here, I stop his idea of g4. So I'm stopping him gaining space and I'm gaining space myself. In order to get better at chess, you've got to think like this, but also gaining space is really, it's always good to have the extra space in chess. And these pawns will slowly advance. We don't need to rush. So my opponent plays bishop b5, and now I can't really do anything with my pawns. I could go d4 check, but the problem with this is after king f2, this pawn could become weak because I can't really back it up with another pawn. So the threat is stronger than the execution. So if I can't do anything with my pawns, I want to activate my pieces. This is the way I'm thinking. I can't activate my knights at the moment. I can either activate my king or my rook. My rook is not doing so much. So what did I do now and why? Again, try to get in the right way of thinking. This is the right way to think when you're playing chess. Hello, Pizza Racer. Hope you're doing all right. Okay. Well done, Chris Baker, and well done, everyone else. Just rook to h4. Because my rook's not doing much, and bringing it towards the center, it gives me a nice active rook. I attack his king, and I gain some time. So rook h4 is I think, a good move to play. Activating a piece. And these are only very small improvements. When you're playing a good player, like my opponent, FIDE Master 2310, you're very unlikely to win a game of chess by just going bang, bang, bang. You have to be patient. You have to make slow improvements and stop your opponent doing what he wants to do. If you can improve your position and keep his position level or worse, you're going to win in the long run. So that's what we're trying to do now. So now the game continued. c3. So my opponent's saying, okay, I'm not going to let you go d4. And now, if anyone can find my next move, they're doing really well. This is one of the hardest moves in the game. I'm not going to say anything if anyone can find my move, but more importantly, what is the plan behind my move and why did I play it? I don't just want an individual move without any explanation. Get in the right way of thinking. Why are you playing that move? What are you trying to achieve? How does it help your position? So anyone, I'll give you a little bit of time. Let's see. Okay, so EX says king d6. And I like that EX has given me a reason so that my knights can move. The only problem with this move is I am moving into the line of the rook. It's a good idea, but it's not the move I played. Now, some people are saying f4, but they're not giving me any reason, so I'm not taking that as an answer. Give me a reason. You guys are saying moves, but you're not giving me a verbal explanation. You've got to give me a verbal explanation. Imagine you're playing this game. You've got to be talking to yourself and saying, why am I trying to do that? Move king back, f4, f3, trying to split the pawns. Okay, at least you're getting another reason now. Maybe, but do I really want to split the pawns, make him take that and get my rook in? That's maybe an idea. So this is the one idea, but I think it's a little bit premature. I don't need to change the pawn structure yet because why? You know, I've got a nice pawn structure. We don't need to rush. Okay, activate knight and attack bishop. How do you do that though? Rook e4 to force the king back. Okay, but so what? What are we doing next? We might as well keep the threat of rook e4. Now, some of you, okay, knight b8 to go a6 and b5. That's interesting, but I don't like my knight on b8 because it's very passive on b8. What I want to do is get my pieces to the best squares and improve my pawn structure. So no one's found my idea. Okay, I am homeless on Wi-Fi. Clearly a very strong player. I am homeless on Wi-Fi. Congratulations. And you can tell, I can tell, you know, in the chat, you know, I'm not being rude, but I can tell that I am homeless is a strong player because he's thinking in the right way. Now, how can you find the plan? We'll explain the plan in a minute. Now, can I do anything with my pawns? Now, you could go for this knight b8, a6 and b5, but the knight then comes to c5. If you ever play b5, you're allowing this knight to get back in the game. And this knight at the moment, why are you trying to force this bad knight to a better square? So we don't want to do anything with the pawn. So it's not a pawn idea. Next of all, we do have time here, so we don't have to do anything immediate. Let's look at our pieces. This is very simple. Which of our pieces are good and which are bad? We keep our good pieces on the good squares. We try to improve our worst piece. Well, our knight here, very nice central knight. We don't want to move that one. Our rook here is good. This check, we might as well keep. So I don't want to move these two pieces. Now, moving the king is the next logical move. But again, why? Why are you actually doing that? What are you actually achieving? Maybe your king becomes a bit better for the ending. But the worst piece here is this knight. Now, when you have knights that control squares like this, they're generally bad. Why is this knight bad here? Well, for a start, I can't move this knight. If I wanted to move this knight at all, I'd lose the piece. So I can't do that. And this knight, what's it actually doing? It's doing nothing at all. So I want to try to move my worst placed piece, this knight, to a better square. So I have a little trick that I often use in my own games. What I do, you can try this yourself, is take your worst placed piece. Well, work out if you have time. If you have time, look at your worst placed piece. Let me do it on this hand so I can move the mouse, which is this one. Remove that piece from the board. So imagine it's off the board. Okay, remove it from the board. Find a square on the board where you'd like to put that piece. So where would I want to put that piece? Anywhere on the board? Well, actually, I'd like it somewhere like e4, wouldn't I? In the central. Two strong knights in the center. Imagine that knight was there. That'd be bloody beautiful. And then stage 5, the final stage, is track how you get that knight to that square. You can either track back from your ideal square or you can track forwards. And now my next move becomes clearer. Knight to d8. My knight is heading f7, d6 with tempo, and then into e4. And I have time to do this. I can even go this way or this way. 1, 2, 3. So this is why I played this move. So that's what a little thing you can do in your own games. What is the reason for delaying the plan with rook h4? Well, I'm getting my rook to a more active square. My rook was on h6 before. My rook was not doing anything on h6. On this square, I have the idea of checking. I have the idea of stopping c4. I've improved my rook as much as I can, basically. Okay, so I now go. Okay, the knight. My opponent now tries to get his worst piece to a better square. I now bring my knight around, and you can see that only now do I play f4 check. The reason I play f4 check is because now my knight can come to this square with another tempo. He has to really go to f2 to keep his thing. And now my knight, look at my knight. Look how strong that plan was. My knight is coming into this square with check. This is why I've gone f4. c4, very good move actually. And now, what have I done against rook d4? Okay, let's quickly answer that question after knight d8. I think I would have just moved my rook back, I think. Let me just go there, because I want to keep the rooks on the board. Okay, after knight d8, what would I have done against this one? Well, this is a good question. I thought about this at the time. What I'd have done here, now, I would have basically thought, okay, well, my opponent's rook is a little bit more exposed there. So even though I've moved my rook up here, his rook's more exposed. And then the next thing is what I said earlier. Do I want to exchange rooks? I don't think I do, because my rook is much better than his rooks. His rook can't really attack my pawns, but my rook can attack his g-pawn and maybe come here. So I'd probably just go something like rook h8. And I'd still continue with my plan, and I'd try to get my rook down here. And I think his rook there might be a target to like e5 later on, to answer your question. Okay, let's go back to the position. So anyway, we got to this position. My opponent played c4, check, king g1. Now this is where it gets quite interesting, because I'm clearly better. Not a bad move, rook d4. I am homeless on Wi-Fi, you're right, I agree. But in this position, I should now be a lot better, because my knights and my rooks are lovely. But if too many exchanges happen, so let's say I take this pawn here. If too many exchanges happen in the position, you can lose a lot of your advantage when you exchange your good pieces for your opponent's bad pieces. And I think these exchanges, even though I'm better here, it simplifies it. So I don't really want to do this. So now I had probably my longest think of the game. And I came up with 2 ideas. So anyone want to suggest an idea for black here? Anyone want to suggest an idea for black in this position? Well, X off. Is that? I think you have got the right idea. I want to start getting an attack. I want to start attacking him. And to be honest, f3 was so tempting because I want to get rid. I'm actually going to try to checkmate him. You can still checkmate in end games and middle games. Because I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking his king, why can't we try to get rid of the defense of his king? So get rid of that pawn and try to attack him. Now, the other move I was thinking of was rook h5, because my rook has done its job to defend the pawn, and I want to, after pawn takes pawn, I was thinking play rook g5. Now, quick question for you. If my opponent takes on e6 here, what would my idea here be? And this is one reason I wanted to play this idea, because the next couple of moves is quite pretty, and it's always nice to finish a game in such style. Yes, the idea now would be knight f3 check, and this works because my rook pins the pawn, and after king here, I have a very pleasant choice of moving my knight to one of these 2 squares with checkmate. So which square do I go to? f2 or g3? Checkmate. And that's very pretty. But the reason I didn't play this, and you've got to consider your opponent's best defense, is that after rook g5, he now has to stop this move. He can't go bishop e2 because f3 will be very strong. But I thought he could now play king h2. And I didn't see a good move here. So I can simply take the pawn back now, because he can't recapture because of the knight g4. But I didn't see a good move, so I didn't want to play this one here. So this is why I turned this down. This is why I played f3. Okay, so the game now continues. g4. My opponent's left me a very dangerous pawn, but he's still got a defensive thing. Now, if he had taken here, I would have gone knight check, king here, and now the very clever rook f4. And my idea is to go knight h4 check and rook f2. So, for example, pawn takes here. I'm actually checkmating him. Normally, the magic number of pieces, if 3 pieces is attacking the lone king, it should be checkmate. And after this check, let's say rook f2, it's pretty much winning. I'm threatening the knight moves, and now I checkmate him with check. And let's do another knight checkmate. Very nice knight checkmate there. Another pretty checkmate. So after this move f3, my opponent really had to play g4. And now I just played knight to g5, trying to win these pawns. And now I'm going to get to the ending. So let's move on to the ending now. Now, my opponent allowed me to basically get my knights working. And I'm going to go through this quite quickly. I already have a very good position. And now I've won a pawn. So this should be winning. But I really flaffed this up. I'm a pawn up. I've got great knights. I've got a great pawn. My opponent's pieces are bad. I should be winning. And after knight c4, I rushed a little bit here to try and simplify. I should actually keep this knight on board and then play something like knight g3, where my knight will come here, and his knight is not actually very good. But I think, well, I say I should play this, but I think when you're better, it's okay to simplify. I'm a pawn up, so actually this is not so bad. Swap off a pawn. And now my opponent took here. His position was bad anyway, so I went check. And he decided to take this one. Had he gone here, he's in for a very tough defense. These are weak pawns, and I'm a pawn up. He should lose this one. But, of course, after this one, I'm 2 pawns up, and the win should be easy. But, oh my lord, I played a very typical mistake now. My opponent played a4, and now I thought, oh, it's easy. This is easy. And I lost some of my concentration. I went king f5, trying to go e5, e4. My opponent played right. He's trying to get counterplay somehow. If I take that one, he gets a passed pawn, a little bit of counterplay. So I simply played e5. This is all right. And now my opponent played king e3. And this is a critical position. And around here, I got really lazy. I basically played a move which I thought, okay, this is very easily winning. I'll just play this move. And as soon as you... This is one of the biggest mistakes. Another big mistake. We're going through all the mistakes in this game that amateurs play. And that is when you get a good position, relaxing. Never relax until you've won the game. And here, I should not be relaxing. And I played rook h4, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to take this pawn, and it should be winning. But I didn't really look any deeper than that. I didn't really look any deeper. Had I looked any deeper, I would have realised it's not so easy. Now, of course, the move I want to play was e4. So I looked at e4. But then I thought, oh, it gets a little bit complicated after rook b1 because my opponent's going to check me here and take on e4. And I stopped here. But black is quite easily winning here. What should black play in this position? And there's one move here that is a winning move. One move here, which is the winning move. Well done, Chessflow. I am homeless on Wi-Fi. I can simply go rook h2. And had I calculated this little move, it would have been easy to see that this is winning. I'm either going to force his king away and queen the f-pawn. So let's say he takes here. Well, now I simply go check, and his king cannot handle my f-pawn. So I go here, I queen. He can only go here or something. Next move, I can go here or just bring my king in. It's completely winning. And if he plays in this position, rook b5 check, which is a little bit more worried about, this is very easily winning because I go king g4. And after he takes my pawn, well, f2 probably wins, but rook e2 is maybe even more precise. Again, you want to force your opponent's king away from your passed pawn. And after it's away, just rook e6. And I've got this force field, so his king cannot get near my passed pawn. I'm also defending this one, and my plan is simply f2 queen. And if I need to support it with my king, I can. Very easily winning. So this rook ending should have been very easily winning. Had I played e4, it would have been a pretty nice, smooth game. But I played the lazy move, rook h4. Never be lazy in your calculation. If you're not calculating properly, you're never going to be a strong player. If you're being lazy with your calculation, you're never going to play as well as you should do. All the top players, they calculate amazing. If you can't do that, you need to work on that skill. And now after king takes f3, well, I played this check. And the point is I want to force my opponent's king further away from my passed pawn. So going for the same philosophy I did. So if he goes here or here, I can swap rooks and the king and pawn ending is winning. For example, we get this, and this is very easily winning. I'm going to win another pawn, simple stuff. So my opponent has to go a little bit further away, and I saw this position, and I played the next move instantaneous. Again, a really bad move. I got really greedy, and I took this, but actually, it's not so easy. Maybe it's even a draw after this. I should have played e4. And again, I should just use my passed pawn, because I have a force field again on his king. In these positions, if your king can't get in front of the pawn, you're probably going to lose. And this is actually very easily winning as well. I can either check it and come through, but I got greedy. I went rook takes c4. And all of a sudden, after rook b1, I defended this one, king f3. My plan was rook e6. My plan was just to go push this pawn, get my rook behind the passed pawn, move my king here, and push this one. So, for example, if he plays rook b2, I just thought this was easily winning. I do something like this, and my opponent can't really do much. and eventually I will support this one and come up the board easily winning. But my opponent now plays. Well, what did my opponent now play in this position? My opponent now had a move, and after his next move, I'm like, well done, Jobius. Well done, young sir. Maybe you're an endgame expert in disguise. After my opponent's next move, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not winning. Rook b5. And all of a sudden, I'm like, hang on a minute. This is a draw. And I'm like, oh, you idiot. So I like, right, I need to now go back to the start again. I've done all this hard work. I've thrown it away by being lazy. So I now dived into a very long think. And I thought, well, of course, I must have some winning chances. But how on earth do I win this? So can anyone now come up with what I think is the only plan? And again, this is not individual moves. You need to tell me a verbal plan. So write it in sentences. I'll have a look. What's the only way I can try to win this? And I'm probably going to have to give up the E pawn or B pawn. So which pawn do I want to give up and why to win this? Not easy. King F6 is what I played, but then the king comes into E4, so I can't push the pawn. Chopper, well done. You got the right idea. It's harder to do that than you might imagine. Checkmate a lot. Congratulations. You've got the right idea. You're verbally thinking of it as well. Yes, some of you got the right idea already, so congratulations. I mean, this if I move this rook, he takes this pawn. I mean, it's really hard to win. I can't push this pawn because it's pinned. It actually reminds me of an endgame that occurred in 1993 in the World Championship match between Garry Kasparov and Nigel Shaw, where Garry Kasparov had the 2 extra pawns, but I think it was similar to this. It was actually a draw. And, well, one thing I was thinking of is, okay, I can give up this pawn and try to activate this, but then it's a dead draw because my opponent's king is in front of my passed pawn. Let's just say I try to do that somehow. I don't know. It's actually, I mean, let's say I go here, for example. My opponent goes here. I check him. He goes here. And now I go here. Is this a good chance to win? Well, this is a draw. This is one way I can try because at least I'm making some progress. My opponent can even check here. So maybe king f4 is more accurate. But because my opponent's king is in front of my passed pawn, this is a very easy draw. When you're playing rook and pawn endings, if you can get your king in front of your opponent's passed pawn, it's a draw. My opponent's the FIDE master. He uses what's called the third rank defense. You can Google it. It's a draw. Thank you for the cheer there, Black Spot. Very kind of you. So I can't do this. So the only other option I thought I could do was to give up this pawn, get my king to c6, try to stop his king getting in front of the pawn. So this is what I need to do. I need to stop his king getting in front of my pawn because I know that's a draw. So I need to cut it off and then try to queen the pawn. So that's now what I did. So I danced around a little bit. Okay, I went here, here. We did a little bit of dancing. And now I come with my plan. But now his king comes here, which is annoying. I have to give up the pawn. King d7. He goes king takes. Now, what should I play here? Okay, what would you play if you were black here? What should I play here? What should black play in this position? What should I play here? Well, I shouldn't play rook d1 because he will take my last pawn. I've only got one way to try and win this position. By the way, I do now have this x-ray, so his king can't cross at the moment. So I have winning chances. Now, you want to either move your king to one of these two squares, but I'd like to play king c6 because it gains the tempo, but as a tactical reason I can't. Rook b6, draw. And remember, I don't really want to get this straight away. I want to make him fight for it. So I have to play king c7, and now we get a critical position. My way to try and win this is to move my rook away from his king, and then attack his rook with my king and use my king and pawn to slowly come up the board like this. So it's 2 stages winning plan. Stage number 1, cut his king off. I've got the force field. Don't let his king get in front of the pawn. If his king gets over here, it's a draw. So we've got to cut his king off. And then stage 2, use my king and pawn to come up the board like this and get a queen. So what should my opponent do to draw this? Well, I thought what he has to do, he has to try to impose his rook at some point on the d file. And then he can get rid of my x-ray. And then if I take the rook off, his king will get a drawn king and pawn ending. And if I don't take the rook off when he imposes, his king can come one file across. So, for example, my opponent now played the best move. He played rook b4. And after my rook, now I do stage 1. I get my rook away, rook d1. He now breaks this one file. He plays rook d4. Very good play from my opponent. The best drawing idea. Because remember, he's trying to get his king in front of my pawn. He's breaking the x-ray. If I take this one off, it's a drawn king and pawn ending because my pawn is a little bit advanced. Because he gets the opposition, very easily drawn. This is a well-known draw. And again, if you're not sure about this, you can look at this elsewhere. So I can't take the rook off. So what do I need to play here? What is the only way I can try to win this position? What is the only way, guys? And remember, I'm still trying to stop his king getting to the b file. I mean, I'm not sure about rook b1. Rook b1, I think his king just comes over here, yeah? His king comes to c2. I don't think I can play rook b1. If I play rook on, if I go rook b1, then his king simply runs back now. Okay, I have to be a little bit careful. Maybe he should go this way. He just goes this way, yeah? This is very easy draw. And if I go here, he just goes here. He doesn't even have to go back. He can go forwards. And he's got rook here next, draw. Easy draw. So there's only one way to win. And remember, I need to cut his king off. So as a lot of you are saying, the only way is rook c1. And at least now I have the force field on the c file. So if I can, okay, it's not as good as it was because his king's a little bit nearer. But if I can now just push these pawns somehow like this, I can still win. Because his king can still not get to this square. But this is an amazing position. And in this position, and this is really, really hard, my opponent only has one drawing move here. He only has one drawing move. My way to win this is go b5, king b6, king a5, b4, king a4, b3, king a3, b2, king a2, b1. This is my winning idea. And keep the force field on this file so his king cannot stop that. But my opponent has one drawing idea, and it's an amazing... I would not see this. I would not see this idea. Let's see if anyone can think what it is. Well, Jen's chess, you are right, but what are you going to do after king b7? We need a little bit more explanation. We need a little bit more explanation that. Well, if you go king d5, I just go b5. How does that help? And I'm going to do my plan. King comes here, b4. This is a draw, yeah? You can't go rook c4 because I'm controlling that square. And most importantly, your king is cut off, yeah? Your king can't come across. So this doesn't help. You're losing here. It's simply losing. You're completely lost in this position. Because if you... What can you do? I'm just going to do my plan. Bang, bang, bang. So not king there. Now, some of you are saying go here and here, but this is correct. I think this move is so hard to see. I personally would not find this move in a game. Now, it is well done if you've got the right idea. I would not find this one. I mean, if you play rook to a4, I think it's a really hard move to find. Now, if I go b5, this is a mistake in my opinion. We should now see why it is probably a draw. Because you go rook a6. And this cuts the black king off. It's all about cutting the king off. Cutting your opponent's king off, not getting your king cut off. And this position, without my king being able to support my pawn, it's a draw. He's now got his force field. So let's say I go king here, he goes here. Let's say I try pushing my pawn. As soon as I'm pushing my pawn, This is much worse because my pawn and king are not supporting each other. They need to be able to support each other, or more importantly, my king needs to support the pawn. If it's not supporting the pawn, what's the easiest move here to draw for white? What move does white play to draw? Well done, checkmate a lot. You got the right move. Well done, anyone else who got it. It is rook h4. If I could play king b5 here, I'd be winning. But in this position, it's not winning because this pawn cannot be defended. If I go on, rook b4 check wins the pawn. If I defend the pawn, I get rid of my force field on the c file. So my opponent just goes king here, and he goes king here, draw. His king comes across, yeah? So I think it's clear that, I think this rook a4 move, personally, is really hard to see. It's clear, though, after b5, which I would not have played, rook a6, it's a draw because my king is cut off. So what I would have played here would have been king b7. My idea here is, again, I want to stop this move and I want to just come forwards. And this is where it gets really, really bizarre. This still looks like it's winning to me, but the computer indicates that this is a draw. Okay, so I'm just going to show you why, because I think this is really hard to see. He should get his king as near to my pawn as possible. So king to d4. And now I push with b5. And I'm going to try to do my plan of this one. And now, where does he put the rook? I'm assuming this is winning. His rook can't come and check me. But he actually keeps his rook on a2. And then I go king b6. And my idea is to push, push, push and win. And now he gets his king as near as possible. So his king comes back. And now, after I've got to play king c5. Because remember, he wants to go rook c2 here. So if I play b4, for example, he plays rook c2. Remember, he wants to break the force field if and only if that when I exchange rooks, it's a king and pawn ending draw. So here, if I exchange rooks, this is a draw because he gets the opposition. Again, this might be quite high-level stuff for some of you. I'm sorry about that. You know, it's a difficult ending. You've got to learn your basic endings, or otherwise you won't be a good player. So what I need to do in this position is go king c5. And the difference here is that if he goes rook c2, I have to take the rook. And what's the winning move here? Most of you should know this. What is the winning move here? Push, 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 breathe, breathe, breathe. I'll take a deep breath. The winning move is get the opposition. This is called the opposition. You should know this. If you don't know this, you really need to know your endings. Go to chess.com premium endings. This is on there. It's a very basic ending. And the point of this is whoever it is to move is basically in trouble. If it's white to move, white is losing. If it's black to move, then it's a draw. For example, if king here, now white has to give way. If he goes this way, I go this way. King a2 here. My pawn will queen. If he goes this way, I go this way. My pawn will queen. And again, it's a basic ending. It's one you should know. So I'm not going to spend too long on that one. We're coming to the end of the game anyway. But amazingly, after king c5, got to find my calculations now, he can still draw. So he should play king to d2, gaining a tempo on the rook. And now, after rook c4, he can't play this one, but he can just play. And again, this is so hard. What is his only drawing move now? It's such a hard ending. He's only got one move again to draw. And again, I don't think I'd find this move. I'd probably go, well, I'm not going to give anything away. What is the only drawing move? Well, rook to a5, I go king b4. And I can use my king and pawn. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the moves. One suggestion at a time, please. If he goes rook to a5, I go king b4. And again, I want to use these guys. You have to move your rook. And now I go king. I go pawn. I go king. You can see what's happening here. So rook a5. No. Now, if you go king d3, does this move draw, as International Master Chris Baker is suggesting? Well, what about I go king b4 now, Chris? Because I might be able to do a little bit. Your rook is a bit close to my king. It's a little bit close to my king. So, for example, I want to go king b3. and maybe, you know, push. And if you go check here, I now can't go here because you take my pawn, but I can go king a4. And again, this one is tough. I think I'm winning here because I move my rook, I push. If you now go check, I go king b3, your rook is a little bit near my king. This is the key point. My rook and king are too near. I mean, is this, maybe you can go rook a1 here, but I go king b2. This is probably winning, or it's very close to winning. I can go check and b4, winning, building the bridge situation. So king d3 is, I think, maybe winning for black after king here. So, okay, I'm going to take, again, I can't look at all your suggestions. We know that rook a5 helps me. This is losing. I think king d3 is losing. Anyone else? Now, let's see if anyone's got any suggestions here. John. Hello, John, in the chat. Famous retired mathematician. Well, not retired mathematician, but retired American football player and mathematician, has the right idea. Congratulations. Anyone else? Now, we'll come back to John's idea in a minute, but first of all, let's have a look at rook to a8. I think I would play this move if I didn't have a clue, because it looks like the rook is going to try to annoy the pawn from behind. But now I just use my king and pawn. You can't do anything to stop this. I keep the force field. You can't get on the force field. And I go king b4. And I'm just going to slowly move these guys up the board. I mean, what can you do? If you try to stop that, I go king a4. You can't do anything with your king because I have the force field. And if you try to do something, it's not going to help. They're going to slowly come up like this. Like you can see how black makes progress. They slowly come up the board. Slowly come up the board. So the only way to draw this position, and I think this is amazing, I don't think I find it, is to now play rook to a1. I mean, this is a really hard ending, guys. But rook to a1, because now, unlike the idea that Chris Baker said, who had exactly the right idea, you've got one more file, and what I mean by file, you've got one more file to check on. So if I now go king b4, which worked before, you can now have enough room to check. Now, I don't know if this is ever going to help. If anyone's going to remember this, including myself, in a real game. Is this actually going to help you? Is it going to help me? I've no idea. I'm trying to do my best to explain the ending, and it is bloody hard. And the idea is now, you can just go check. I go king here. I can't go here because you take the pawn. And after king a4, you go check. And remember, when the rook was on a2, I go king here and I'm winning. But now you're not attacking the rook. You can just go check. And they just go like this. It's a draw. It doesn't matter. I take the pawn. So I have to go here, check. Here, check. And I can't get this forwards. And at the right time, you might be able to swap rooks. This is the other key point. So even here, can you swap rooks here? I'm just trying to work this out. Can you play this move? Can you play this? Is this a draw? This is, again, quite hard to work out. I think this is a draw. Yeah, this is a draw, no? This is a draw. Even I'm getting confused here because I think white gets the opposition. Because after rook takes here, king takes here, white has the opposition. Wherever black moves to, white goes opposite. So it's a draw, yeah? If the white king was on c2, white's losing. But the white king on c1, it's a draw. For example, king here, here. It's a draw because it's black to move and white can block. White can keep blocking these three squares. If you go here, block the squares. You go here, block. So it's quite an amazing ending, I think. I mean, bloody hard ending. I mean, but yeah, rook c1's a nice draw. I think this is a draw, yeah? Just about a draw. Okay, so let's have a look. Someone's saying rook c5 was possible. Social distancing. That's quite a good way to sum it up. Social distancing, rook and pawn. I like that. Nice one, Pizza Racer. Very good, very good. I feel this stream is for Grandmaster. It is tough stuff. I'm sorry about that. You know, I'm just looking at this game I had, and you know, chess is tough, man. Chess is tough. So I'm sorry if I've lost you a little bit. I've lost myself at times. Someone's saying Rook C5 is a draw. Let me just see. Sorry, a win. Let me just see. Okay. Do you mean here? Or was it back a little bit? I mean, I could be wrong. This is what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go back further and further. Okay, so Rook, King D2, Rook here, Rook here. How does Black win this? I don't think Black can win this after Rook A1. I don't think there's any winning ideas here. If you go B4, I can swap Rooks again. Draw. Yeah, draw. I think it's a draw, yeah? I mean, has anyone got... I mean, okay, look, we could spend hours on this ending. I'm going to now show you, which is also very interesting, what happened in the game. And otherwise, I'm just going to get too confused. It's confusing enough. Remember, we had this position, and the only drawing move was Rook A4, with the idea of either cutting off the king or coming back here and checking the black king, and also the rook over here and the king here, or the rook here and the king here. So imagine the white king here and the white rook here gives white opportunities to put the rook on the c file, going into a drawn rook and pawn ending. So the only drawing move is Rook A4, which is really... I mean, I'm not joking here, but if you showed this to Magnus Carlsen, he would get it, but I think you'd have to think about it. I mean, how many... I mean, I'd love to test Keith Archer on this one, who is probably Britain's best endgame specialist. I'd love to test him on it. After this one, sorry, let's just go back. Now the pawn is on B6. In that last variation, did you mean, John? Okay, we can have a look at it one more. What around? Not this position. It's getting confused. So King B7 is the best chance. Did you mean here? Let's have a look. B4. I think I'm getting confused now. So if I'm getting confused with the variations, I apologise. I think we've shown that this is a draw. This one in the game. Well, he played Rook D2. If we go here and I go this one, we've shown that this move is a draw because the pawn and king are too far away. So, for example, if you ever push the pawn. Now, white's easiest way to draw is to now attack the pawn. For example, you attack the pawn. And the problem here is you need to be able to defend this with the king on one of these two squares. If you can't defend it, you lose the x-ray. So if you go this way, the white king can come over. You've got no x-ray. So that's a draw. If the rook goes this way, your white king can come the other way. And this, I'm assuming, is a draw. Yes, it is a draw, because there's no way to stop me taking that one. If I'm losing you, I apologise. So I'm going to show you the game now. I'm going to show you what happened in the game. Thank you for subscribing, Mark, there. So in the game, my opponent played Rook to D2. And he has the right idea. He wants to put the king on D3 and the rook on C2. And he wants to get a drawn king and pawn ending. But, unfortunately for him, I now play B5 and my king comes here. So let's have a look. He plays King D4, only way to try. King B6. And now, if he plays King to D3, with the idea of going Rook C2, what is Black's winning idea? So White wants to play Rook C2, break the force field, get the king in front of the pawn, get a draw. So what is the winning idea here? What is the winning idea here? I'm sorry if I've missed some of your variations. I apologise. King C5. Is King C5 winning? I thought maybe that is winning. King C5. But then maybe King C5 is winning. Yeah, you're right. I didn't actually think of King C5, believe it or not. King C5. Rook C2. Takes. King C4. Why didn't I think of that one? Amazing. King C5 is good. There's another way of doing it. I had another idea in mind. Okay, well, I was thinking King A5, but what happens if he goes Rook C2 then? So try to think of the line. You have to calculate even in endings. So I wanted to play King A5, but if he goes Rook C2, so I'm not going to put the moves on the board. Try to visualize it. Okay, King A5, Rook C2, Rook takes Rook, King takes Rook, There's one winning move there. One winning move. Well done, Stelly. Well done, Gargon VGD. If I'm getting confused, I apologise. And the winning idea here is, well, I would have played this way. Maybe King C5 was winning as well, which is quite similar to a line that I played before. But now I can go this way. I kind of prefer this move because my rook it doesn't get trapped by the king. So in some situations, my rook can come back to these 3 squares. In this situation, it's kind of a little bit trapped. So I think King A5 makes more sense. And after Rook C2, I can take, and there's only one winning move. If you play King B4, it's a draw. White gets the opposition. If you play B4, it's a very easy draw. King B3. If you play King A4, you're now winning because black gets the opposition. This is what I would have played. King B4, King B2. We now play King B4, and it's white to play, so black is winning, as we talked about earlier. If he goes King to B1, we go King to B3. We get the opposition with our opponent to move. It's winning. Oh, sorry, I've jumped a little bit there. I'm losing all the lines now, aren't I? Okay, let me just get back to where we were. We're having a look at this ending where we had this. I just want to finish the analysis. Okay, if he goes King to C1, well, there's 2 ways to win. We can even go King B3 now. He goes King B1. It looks like white has the opposition, but we can waste a move here. We can waste a move by playing B4. And now we get the opposition. If he goes to A1, we come to C2. Bang, bang, bang. If he comes to C1, we go to A2. You can see how we're trying to find a way in. Bang, bang, bang. If you play the moves with sound effects, it's even better, I found. You know, in a tournament, you're about to queen the pawn and you go bang, bang, bang. No, don't do that. That's not true. And, yeah, I think this is now winning. So I'll show you what happened in the actual game. He played Rook D2 and B5 here. And now he went Rook A2. But now it's very easy. Now it's actually very easy because I can use my king and pawn. So I just go B4. And remember, if he attacks it and your king defends, it's better. He tries to get his rook behind. Now, if he plays... Okay, one last question for you. If he goes King D3, which I thought was a better try because he wants to go Rook C2, I play King B5. And if he goes Rook C2, what do I play here? What do I play here? There's only one winning move here. It's not easy, this, guys. What is the winning move here for black? I think there's only one winning move because now he's broken the force field. What is the winning idea? I'm being told that Botez is using bang, bang, bang all the time, and I could be copyright infringing her. Look, I was banging out the chess moves, just clarify that, a long time before Botez. Botez is a baby. I was banging out the moves when she was you know, a wee little child. So I've got the things. Well done, Chris. Well done, Checkmate. Well done, Jen's Chess. The only winning move here is Rook D1. Taking the rook now is not a win because your pawn is on the wrong square. And after you, get the so-called opposition, your pawn in king and pawn endings, the one rule to remember, you want your pawn as far back as you can, generally. You actually don't want to have moved your pawn because this pawn takes away the square for the king. And after King B2, it's a well-known draw. So after this check here, it's now winning because my opponent has to go either further away, easily winning, or if my opponent now blocks, we can do the same thing and not go King C4 because King C2 is a draw. But what do we play here to win? What is the only winning move here? What's the only way that black can win this position? Let's see if anyone can find this one. King A4, indeed. King A4, and we're going to get the opposition, like King C2, King A3, King B1. Where do we go? King B3, and we win. with our bang, bang, bang. There you go. I got it in again. Bang, bang, bang. So this is actually now a little bit easier to win. Now my opponent played rook to a8, but now there's quite a famous winning technique. I can use these pawns to get us... Okay, now I do this in stages. Stage number... Okay, let me explain the winning plan now. It's got a lot easier, but it still requires a bit of technical knowledge. Stage 1 is stopping your opponent from getting the king over here. I don't allow the king to get here, so I need to keep the force field. Stage 1. Stage 2 is to get the king and pawn as far up the board as I can together. And stage 3 is what we call building a bridge, the Louisiana position. Hanging pawn, thank you for the raid there. Very kind of you. Cheers, hanging pawn. Very kind. Some would say this is hanging pawn, but I call it a pass pawn. What makes... we're all isolated pawns at the moment, I think, aren't we? We are all... That's not my joke, by the way. But we're all weak, isolated pawns in this world of pawn grabbing around. So, okay, so let me show how I do those 3 stages. So basically, stage 1 is to get these 2 guys up the board together. So we do that. So king b5, king here, b3, king d2, check. I've got to keep the force field. King d3, king b4, king rook here. And now I want to push this pawn, but I lose my rook. So let's move the rook as far away from the king as we can. I still keep the force field. Remember, my king can always come to b1 if it's checked. So if I ever get checked like this, it doesn't help because I'm going to come to b1 sooner or later, like here, check here. So we're going to do it like this anyway. So, where was I? Okay, I'm just going to go through those moves again. So we were here. Okay, so rook b7, king a3, here, king d2. And now this is important. If you get an opportunity to force your opponent's king further away, you should do. So rook d8 forces that king further away. So we might as well do that. And now I played a little mistake, but it doesn't matter. I built the bridge a little bit early. I was getting a little bit confident here, but we'll come back to this. I'll show you the technique in a second. Remember, stage 2 is to get this pawn as far up the board as we can. Okay, so stage 2 done. And now stage 3 is to build the bridge or do this Louisiana. And this is maybe the most famous or the most important, they say, rook ending technique you need to know. So now after king to e3, well, I kind of gave away the winning idea. How do you win this position? Do I call it Louisiana? Look, I'm dyslexic. I always say things wrong. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. That's why I say building the bridge. It's like you build a bridge. You build a bridge between your king and rook. So this rook just wants to check the king. So if I try to move my king and queen, my opponent just checks me. Check. 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 And we get back to the same position. So we need to build a bridge between the rook and the king. How do we do that? Well done, checkmate a lot. Is rook c8 winning? Rook c8, king d2. We're not building a bridge there. King here, is that winning? I don't know. Maybe it is, but let's go for a simpler way. Let's build the bridge. And the way you build the bridge is with rook d5. And this is building the bridge because I want to block this piece and this piece. So let's say now my opponent just moves the rook here, thinking he can keep checking me. Now I have a bridge. Now I can move my king out. I want to queen my pawn, so my opponent's only chance here is to check me. I come here, he has to check me again. I go here, he has to check me again. And now I come here. He has to check me again. And now I've built the bridge between my king and my rook. And I can get that bridge finished by going rook b5. And this is the building the bridge, the Louisiana. Is it Louisiana? Defense. It's a very famous, well, not defense, way to win the ending. Building the bridge. You should all kind of know about that one. So there might be other ways to win this position, but rook d5 is the easiest way to do it. And my opponent realised this is losing. He tried king e4 because now I can't move my king out, but now I can build the bridge in another way. So what is the best way to do this now? Well, I don't know if it's the best way, but now rook a5 is very easy because I'm blocking off this file, and this one is now blocking checks, and I just want to put my king on one of these two squares. His king is too far away from my pawn. This was the important factor. And after king d3, there's two winning moves. You guys can tell me one of them. And after the next move, my opponent resigned. Maybe he could have played on a little bit. But what is maybe the best way to win? What's the best way to win? It kind of turned, this kind of show turned from a lesson in the French defense to an endgame lesson. So it kind of drifted out of control a little bit. Yes, I just go king to a2. I'm threatening to queen this pawn. My opponent doesn't have a check here because I built the bridge with this rook. His only chance, he resigned here, would be king c2. And now there are two ways to win. Anyone see both ways to win? Anyone? I mean, I know this way of winning. I know you just put your king and pawn as far as you can, and then you move your rook as near to your pawn as you can. I'll just go over it one more time once we've done it. But what is... I like that. Tayyip, b1 rook, rook c5. As long as you play this move at some point, you're winning. So you can go check first, and your king, forcing the king away. And now we can just queen. He hasn't got perpetual here because it's check. But we can always put our king here and go queen a2. The other way we can win, we can even go, as someone's pointed out, well, we can go queen. And now, again, as long as we have this check, we win this rook next move. So just to discuss this ending one more time, I'm just going to go back a couple of moves. Let's go back to around here. The way you win this ending, if your opponent's king is cut off and you have a passed pawn in an ending, is, let's do it in 3 stages. Number 1, keep your opponent's king cut off. Number 2, get your pawn and king communicating together, but get them as far up the board as you can. And number 3, build the bridge. So bring your rook as near to the pawn as you can. So let's just see that in action. We're only going to do 2 stages. Number 1, king and pawn. Number 2, build the bridge with your rook. Get it as near the pawn as possible. There might be other ways to win, but if you see one, you know one. You don't need to be flash. One's enough. So king and pawn. Bring them up the board as far as they can. So we do that. Okay, also, if you can force your opponent's king away, that's good. Okay, so that's stage number 1. And by the way, you should always try to force your opponent's king as far away. And now, stage number 2, you bring your rook without losing the force field. I don't want to lose the force field. That is a really nice force field. You bring the rook as near to your pawn as you can, without losing the force field. Well, I say near to your pawn. You could say over there, but that doesn't work. But you want to bring it to block the check. So this is building the bridge move. This is the winning idea. Maybe, as someone's pointed out, this is an even quicker way to win. King, and then you can go king here and queen. King here and queen. That might be even better. The reason I played rook d5 is because I know this technique. And I think in life, if you know a technique, just you know, even if there's a quicker way to win, it doesn't matter. You just stick to the technique. So that's why this one is just what I played. And after now, king here, I now found the right idea. But had my opponent's king gone otherwhere, then we can do this kind of stuff and block the check. So that's it. Okay, so I've actually got some work to do. So this stream ended up to be a lot longer than I thought, and I apologise for that. I will have to do a bit more on the French defence another time, guys. You can look at my little lesson on the French defence if you want to. Go and have a little look at the French defence. So there is a little lesson there. I'm just actually trying to find someone to raid now, by the way. I don't know too many of the people streaming. Nice to raid. So do stay here while I raid someone. I'm going to go for... But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. There's more stuff on my YouTube channel. I'll be back again streaming, I think, tomorrow, probably. And on Saturday, I'm running a tournament. If you want to play in a tournament, make sure you're on chess.com and you're logged in about 1:45. the same time I started the show today, British summertime, and you can play in my tournament. There'll be some DVD prizes, so it should be a lot of fun. But thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a laugh, and we're now gonna raid. Who are we gonna raid? Okay, let's do that one. Let's raid. I don't know. I don't know many of the people who are streaming. I don't know them personally, but thank you, by the way, for anyone who's subscribed, any cheers, any donations, anyone who's just turned up. Thank you all so much, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Enjoy the rest of your days. Do stay safe. It's very weird times. I'm sure a lot of us are getting down, including me at times. I'll be honest. Got to try to stay positive, get through this, do positive things. So, you know, if you need some help, make sure you contact someone. And luckily, we've got chess to keep ourselves preoccupied at times, which has been very helpful to me. And I hope it's probably saved me a lot of times, and I hope it will help you as well. So cheers, everyone. Goodbye for now. Until next time. Lord Calcifer, I better do a chess player for now, but I'll do it next time, Lord Calcifer, okay? Just remind me, okay? So I'll see you all later. Goodbye.